Hi. Sorry I kept you all waiting. I want to say a few things before we get started. The first is, on behalf of the family, I want to thank you all. The family has asked for privacy. I've been in this market a long, long time. I know many of you, and you've really shown them a tremendous amount of respect. They've asked for privacy. You've given it to them. You've gotten your stories, and it deserves to be commented on. So thank you. The second thing is I want to thank you all, because we had a screw up with getting some of the emails out. And some of you all contacted fellow or opposing stations or media outlets and let each other know about it. So thank you. That's just a real sign of professionalism, and it says a lot about our community. And the third thing I want to thank you all for, some of you have reached out. I've been in and out of the hospital all week. I just got released from ER this morning. So this will be the first time I've ever had a press conference with a catheter. So thank you for working with us and reaching out. You all have been very kind. Many of you I know. Some of you are friends. Some of you are friendly acquaintances. So thank you very much. We're here. To my left and my right are my two partners, Delane Penland, who is a partner in our personal injury division, and Ryan Vesio, who's a partner, who's in our civil litigation in our personal injury division and our criminal division. And so, and behind us are our support team, fellow partner, also Rick Smith, and our support team, who we've been working on this case for quite a long time. And this one speaks specifically and particularly to you all, because we have a very novel and we believe valid and justifiable claim that we're bringing against Charter Communications, the ownership of Channel 13 locally. And what we're here to talk about is you all, and specifically Dylan, who was killed. You all are called out to go and cover stories, many times putting yourself in danger. And you often don't have a choice. I've been involved with the media for decades and decades, and sometimes you're called out and you don't have a choice. You don't have any knowledge about what's going on. You're just told to go cover a story. And death's door might be awaiting you. You never signed with your contracts for a death sentence. And you should have all the information available to you before you're assigned and sent out on a story that could be dangerous. And what happened here was very dangerous. There was a murderer, not an alleged murderer, but a murderer on the loose. This man, I won't say his name, was well known by law enforcement. A lot of controversy has arisen over this particular case because Dylan was killed. He was a reporter. It's been covered thoroughly. And the person who killed him was well known by law enforcement, and this was the person who the media has captured, and our governor and others in the state attorney race has claimed that in this particular instance, he was on the streets, he was on the loose and kept getting out of jail. Well, it turned out it didn't happen on Monique Worrell's watch. It happened previous to that. But the point is there was 13 or 14 different arrests of this individual. So he was well known by law enforcement. And in fact, earlier that day, his cousin, who was in the car when he murdered Natasha, his first victim, with his cousin. And his cousin talked to law enforcement, and they knew who he was. But rather than letting the public know, very identifiable individual, rather than putting out a notice of who he was, where he was, they stayed silent. They notified you all. They notified the press corps and the media corps that there had been a murder and that he was not captured. Dylan, like many of you, was simply sent out on a case or on a story. He appeared, young man, 24 years old, making a name for himself, loved by many of you all. Tiana, the 9-year-old child, and then shot her mother, Brandy. He then walked out. And on the very spot where the first victim of the day, Natasha, was killed, was the Channel 13 vehicle, right over the spot where she was killed, because nobody knew, and nobody was warned. And with that, the videographer was shot in the groin, and Dylan was shot in the side and died almost instantly. That could have been any of you. It could have been any of the media from around the country. you all take on dangerous jobs. And that's your choice, and it should be your choice. And that's the point of our lawsuit. You should have full knowledge, and you should have a choice whether you're going to be going into a dangerous situation. Some of you would say yes, some of you would say no. But whatever your answer, you should not be shamed in a newsroom. You should not be denied promotions. You should not be ostracized. You should not be mocked. You should not have advancements given to you. You should be able to be given a choice as to whether you want to go on a dangerous assignment and know the facts of that. In this particular case, an experienced news person, I believe a videographer from one of the other stations, had a bad feeling. And because of his knowledge and background, not that of a 24-year-old newbie, decided to leave. And I think most of you know who that is. And the fact is that that's what happened. And others of you helped save the videographer and rendered aid to Dylan as he was dead or dying. So that's why we're here today. It's a lawsuit that we believe needs to be heard. It is not one that has been typically done. We know from many of you all that you did not sign up to be killed, and you want a choice. And we know from around the country it's the same situation. So we're at the forefront of representing Dylan, his memory, and his family for compensation. And we believe the vast number of journalists and media out there who every day do the great work, the people's work, and just should have a choice in what they do. So thank you. I'll turn it over to my partners and then any questions that you all might have.
Go ahead.
Are we doing questions?
No. So one of the things that we see is that in the last 8 years, 321 journalists have either been shot or shot and killed, which is an astounding number. Every day, journalists across this country just go to work to report the news. Journalists are in the profession for the love and to inform our community of things such as what happened that day. However, basic security measures could go a long way to protecting those over 300 journalists. Studies have shown only 53% of journalists have been involved in any safety training over the last 3 years. And we're not talking about extensive law enforcement training. We're talking about basic situational awareness, the identification of weapons, and things that journalists can do to protect themselves. And even more important than that, steps that news organizations can take. A Center for Safety Alliance, which is a worldwide conglomerate of media organizations, entities, and non-governmental organizations, over 170 organizations have signed on to basic journalistic training in items such as situational awareness, personal safety, and reasonable measures that organizations and channels can provide and outlets can provide to their reporters to be safe. And let us not be mistaken what we're talking about. We're talking about a security guard in a high crime area. We're talking about a basic bulletproof vest that could be bought on Amazon for under $200. Unfortunately, Charter Communications is not one of those 180 organizations that is signed on to support journalists. And when we look at this situation, what we know is that there was no question a murderer existed, that law enforcement had just cleared that scene, but didn't provide updated information to those that just wanted to do their job. And that's all that Dylan wanted to do that day. He just wanted to take another step in a career that he loved to inform our community. And with that, as Mr. NeJame has said, this case is about Dylan and getting what's right for Dylan and his family. But we are not mistaken that this case is also bringing a light to basic journalism and journalistic safety, which every single reporter deserves.
And I'll just add, we just got a call today from UCF. It was Dylan's alma mater. And the kids at the School of Communications and Media have been following this story, following Dylan's death. And once they get out there, they deserve the same protections. So we're hoping that we can provide that, or at least get that step in the right direction.
So unless any of you have anything else to add, I want to thank our incredible team and you all. This has been a long time, a lot of work, a lot of investigation, a long time in coming. And the allegations are set forth in the in the lawsuit, which is, I believe has been provided. If not, we'll get it to those who don't have it. But we're open for any questions that any of you all may have.
Why is Jesse Walden not a party to this lawsuit?
We don't represent him.
Does he plan on?
You have to talk to him. That's why I specifically didn't mention his name. I want to give him all the respect. If he wants his privacy, doesn't want to proceed or does want to proceed, that really has to be his choice. And for those who don't, that was the videographer.
Did Dylan object to going to that scene that day?
We can't get into the basics, but the reality of it is he was just told to go. So if you're told to go, you go. And you should not be fearful, or it should not be a culture where you're going to be ostracized, not given a renewed contract, not demoted or not promoted in the newsroom. And you all face that. You all know what those issues are. And we simply said, one, there should have been from charter basic training that should go to all of you all. And two, that they should have given Dylan a choice, knowing that he was going to be potentially in harm's way, to do that. And the culture is set up where those are not choices. Wow, we covered everything with no questions.
That's a first.
Did you say the OCSO lawsuit is forthcoming? Are those separate? Can you differentiate?
They are separate. It'll be forthcoming, although they are somewhat inextricably intertwined. What happened here would not have happened in my white, wealthy Windermere neighborhood. The fact of the matter is that this is in Pine Hills, and it is, I believe the statistics show 71% or so African American, and then about, I might be a little off with my numbers, but 20% or so, 17, 18, 19%, you'll know the numbers better than me, but in that range, Hispanic, and then the rest other, which would include white. With that said, what happened here is that when you'll see it in the suit that'll be filed next week, which we'll get into it more extensively. But Brandy Majors, who was coming home from bringing Tiana, her 9-year-old daughter, home from school, as she entered her neighborhood, she saw law enforcement and asked them what's going on. And they said, all been taken care of, go on. So she did. And with that, she went home. She rested. She was security. She worked security in the evening, was resting, and around 4:00 p.m., the back door opened, which was left unlocked because she had no reason to know of any danger. And they have a dog that would come in and out. And the murderer came in, saw the child, 9 years old, and shot her. And she ran to her mother, screaming, "Mommy, I've been shot." And her mother was cradling her. He opened fire on both of them again, striking Tiana again, and then striking Brandy in the arm. Her father rushed home as his wife was frantically calling 911 and him. He was getting some dental work done right down the street, got there before the paramedics. And she died. It didn't have to happen. So we'll be bringing out a lot more of that in the lawsuit next week. Just didn't have to happen. Because law enforcement will claim, and does claim, that they don't have a duty to inform, it's one thing. But when you ask law enforcement and then they don't provide you the information, and they give you information that causes you to lose a child, that's actionable in our opinion. I personally believe we have a great sheriff. I think he does a great job in Orange County, Sheriff Mina. But that doesn't mean that everybody on the street, or that doesn't mean that all policies are as they should be. And we believe that, one, there should be compensation for that beautiful family. And two, there needs to be appropriate changes so that the community is better safeguarded. And we hope that this office will be as responsible and as compassionate as we've seen them in other instances. But this shouldn't have happened. It could have been avoided, and it largely happened because of a failed policy and procedures and practices that exist that were dangerous and negligent.
And as Mark pointed out, this was a situation of a few seconds could have saved a life. According to the affidavit for arrest warrant of the sheriff's office, the murderer was in the home approximately 14 minutes during that horrific time that Mark spoke about. A 14-second conversation of the murderer still on the loose, at least be aware, would have gone a tremendous way in order to save a life. And we think that that's important. And we think it's important to use all of our resources and experience to not only provide for the family, because a lawsuit will never give back their daughter, but to make change with notifications, with open communication, because those simple acts would have avoided this tragedy.
And it ties in directly to Dylan's death. And that is that if there had been proper information provided from the company to Dylan, if he had been given a choice, if they had passed on that there was a shooter still on the loose, likely could be in the area, not been found, then we believe Dylan would still be alive today, and that 2 other people were killed and 2 others were shot. And so, yeah, we think that policies of both the sheriff's office and in this particular presser of Charter Communications should be changed, and they were negligent, and the deceased voices need to be heard. And we hope that this provides protection to all journalists everywhere, and that this opens the door for that discussion and for a resolution that safeguards everybody from now on and properly compensates the families for the losses they've incurred through these negligent acts. Thank you for the question.
Has this type of suit been done anywhere else in the country?
We're unfamiliar with it. I'm unfamiliar. We know of none. We believe this is somewhat groundbreaking. I think we alluded to that in the press release. And we anticipate that, and we hope that it gets a conversation going. And particularly since this affects everybody in this room in one way or another potentially. You know, many of you all were in tears over Dylan, and many of you all were reevaluating what you do for a living and what you need to be doing. I've talked to many of you, and you all are a microcosm of a larger media community, a journalistic community that exists. And this could have happened to any one of you at any given time. And we believe the only reason that more of you are not dead is because the killer ran out of bullets. It's that simple. The gun was hot, all the bullets had been expended, and 5 people had been shot, 3 killed.
Do you have any idea why the police cleared the scene, if it was an ongoing investigation or whatever the situation was?
We think that, everybody else can't see your hand movement, you did that. We think they just sloughed it off. And that, I think that was a good description, what you just exhibited. I think that, oh well, you know, Pine Hills, another shooting, let's move on. You know, people of Pine Hills are residents, they're citizens. They love and live and breathe just like the rest of us. And because there is some bad elements that have affected them, you know, the beautiful homeowners there, who are the vast majority, deserve the same and equal protection that everybody else should have, and typically does have. In this particular instance, I think whether it was weariness or a lack of concern, whatever their particular thoughts or biases or concerns were, they were waved in without any, and all it would have taken is somebody was killed X amount of time ago, right at that spot. We recommend you take precautions, don't go home, or take close protection, to take precautions to protect your family. How much is that to ask? And the back door would have been locked.
Because we know from the scene, by 321 Hialeah Street was clear as if nothing happened. And those of you who were there that day know that. The tape was gone, the units were out of there, the case was closed by the sheriff's office. However, this is a busy community and people continue to come just to live their daily lives. And unfortunately, more horror and more tragedy happened after the sheriff's office just left the street the way that it was before the first shooting that
They
day.
were so sanitized that the Channel 13 vehicle was parked atop of where Natasha was killed. That could have been any one of your vehicles. It's that simple. You were called out on a story without knowing all the issues that were involved that was provided, and you go out, and it could have been any one of you on any given time, and it shouldn't have happened. And we hope that whatever efforts here that these brave families are doing to going forward, that in some ways, large and small, that the journalistic and media community is protected in the future.
And what are the challenges of holding news organizations liable for something that's otherwise a pretty routine part of our jobs?
Yeah, it's a big task, you know. I mean, we've got resources. But we take them on. It's what we do. We've been called the voice for the voiceless. And, you know, individually, you all don't have a voice. And unfortunately, it takes tragedies such as this to bring issues to the forefront. In this particular instance, it's a tragedy, and public attention is drawn on it, and we start dealing with it. You know, we count on the media. You're anything but enemies of the people. You are the truth seekers. You are the ones, and I'm a big fan of journalists, and you are the ones who bring all this out. And you should not be stripped of your voice, and you should be given a choice. It's that simple. You should be given a choice. And it should not be part of the culture that you have to go out if you are in harm's way. Many of you will accept that task, and bravo. No issue, applaud you. You know, there's a lot of bravery involved in that, and a lot of sacrifice. But that's not to say people who don't go are not brave. They've got families, they've got lives, they've got loved ones, they've got other priorities that they might want to say, I don't want to cover that story. And the culture should be such that you've got the full knowledge and you're given a choice. And to top that, even if you go, you should have been given the basic training as to what to look out for, what protective materials could be given to you so that you are in your best possible place to be safeguarded. In this particular case, you all will know the one videographer left because, and the crew left because they had a bad sense. That comes from years and decades of experience. It doesn't come from being a 24-year-old young reporter on the street who's just being told to go do a story. And that kind of training should have been given, and it could have been given, and it wasn't given.
And what it would take to provide that is a couple hours of time, a couple $100 worth of equipment, a little bit of security. We're aware that independent journalists take it upon themselves to train about safety, to buy their own protective equipment, to listen to the police scanners, to know when danger is present. But we know that lots of media organizations don't provide those same basic things to all of you that report on a daily basis. And all employers have an obligation to protect their journalists and protect their employees. And those of you that brave the worst of the worst for the love of your job and to report news to the community, you deserve to be supported. You deserve to be protected. You deserve to have safety so that you can do that job.
You guys play such a crucial role in our society that you deserve for your bosses to put employees over profits. And so that's what we're here for.
Yeah, well said. And I mean, you should not be considered disposable or dispensable. And you're in an industry where that often happens just because of ratings and everything else. But you are out there doing the work that we need to have done, and you should be respected for that. And you said it perfectly. And we hope that we're being heard, and we're hoping that justice is found through Dylan, and his legacy is such that it made a difference going forward for everybody else. Anybody else got anything else?
Just to clarify, the lawsuit against the sheriff's office, that's being brought on behalf of the Lyons family as well as Tiana Major's
Yes.
family? Anybody else, just those two?
No, we unfortunately, with Natasha, there was no forewarning. She was the first victim. And as we understand it, she was in the car with his cousin and Natasha, got in the back seat, and within a minute and a half just shot her in the back of the head. So there's, I mean, could we sue him, the murderer? Yeah, but, there's nobody else to really address. So,
Brandy's also a party to that suit as well. Brandy
yes,
Major.
because the mother, because she's been shot, yes. And we'll go into more detail with that next week. But we thought that these should be addressed separately because to give respect to both, to give respect to both sides, there is some overlap, but there are two different stories because there are two different series of events that got all these into play. And although there's a level of overlap, they're really distinct issues that need to be brought out independently. Well, unless there's anything else, we're here for you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And you've got our numbers,
you.
so if anybody has a follow-up, feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you.
And thank our team. You all have been invaluable.